Did you know that the Bible talks about money and possessions over 2,350 times? That's more than prayer, faith, or even heaven combined. Think about it. If God talks about wealth this much, could it be because He cares deeply about how we handle it? Here's a bold question. What if God not only wants you to be saved, but also to be financially prosperous? Paul Zane Pilzer's "God wants you to be rich" challenges a mindset many Christians have struggled with for centuries, that wealth is somehow unspiritual. Instead, he shows from a biblical perspective that God is the ultimate provider, and His will is not poverty but abundance. Remember John chapter 10 verse 10, where Jesus says, "I have come that they may have life, and have it more abundantly." That abundance isn't limited to spiritual blessings. It includes health, relationships, and yes, even financial prosperity. Wealth in God's kingdom isn't about greed. It's about having resources to fulfill your purpose, to help others, and to glorify His name. Here lies the challenge. Many Christians see money as dirty or evil. How many times have you heard people say, "Money is the root of all evil"? Yet the Bible actually says in 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 10, "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil." Notice, it's not money itself, but the love of it. Another misconception is that poverty equals holiness. Some believe that living with less somehow makes them closer to God. But the Bible shows us godly men like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Solomon, and Job, who were not just spiritually blessed, but materially wealthy too. Genesis chapter 13 verse 2 says, "Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold." The problem isn't wealth. The problem is when wealth owns us instead of us managing it for God's glory. Lesson 1. Stewardship is the foundation. Wealth begins with understanding that everything belongs to God, not us. Psalm chapter 24 verse 1 says, "The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world, and all who live in it." We are managers, not owners. When you treat money as God's resource entrusted to you, it changes how you spend, save, and give. Luke chapter 16 verses 10 to 11 adds, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." Faithful stewardship unlocks greater blessings. Lesson 2. Wealth comes through hard work and excellence. The Bible is clear. Laziness leads to poverty. Diligence leads to prosperity. Proverbs chapter 14 verse 23 reminds us, "All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty." Colossians chapter 3 verse 23 encourages believers to work as unto the Lord. Wealth creation isn't about shortcuts. It's about using your skills and talents with consistency and excellence. God blesses the work of your hands, not your idle wishes. Lesson 3. Generosity opens the heavens. God's financial system runs on giving, not hoarding. Proverbs chapter 11 verse 25 says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." Malachi chapter 3 verse 10 promises an outpouring of blessings when we tithe faithfully. "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven." Generosity multiplies wealth because it aligns us with God's own giving nature. Lesson 4. Wealth requires vision and faith. Prosperity follows clarity of purpose. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 2 instructs, "Write the vision and make it plain." Without a clear vision, money is wasted on aimless pursuits. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 6 says, "Without faith it is impossible to please God." Wealth builders must see beyond present limitations, believing God to supply according to his riches in glory. Philippians chapter 4 verse 19. Faith-driven vision attracts provision. Lesson 5. Contentment protects wealth. While God wants us prosperous, he also calls us to contentment. 1 Timothy chapter 6 verses 6 to 7 declares, "Godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it." Contentment doesn't mean mediocrity. It means gratitude while working for increase. Content people avoid destructive greed and manage their wealth with peace. Lesson 6. Wisdom is greater than riches. Proverbs constantly reminds us that wisdom is the true key to sustainable wealth. Proverbs chapter 3 verses 13 to 14 says, "Blessed are those who find wisdom. She is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold." Riches without wisdom vanish, but wisdom creates generational wealth. James chapter 1 verse 5 assures us that God freely gives wisdom to those who ask. Wealth must be built on godly wisdom, not worldly schemes. Lesson 7. Avoid debt and financial slavery. Debt is one of the greatest enemies of financial freedom. Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7 warns, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender." Christians are called to freedom, not bondage. Romans chapter 13 verse 8 adds, "Let no debt remain outstanding, except the continuing debt to love one another. Living within your means, saving, and investing wisely protect you from the trap of debt." Lesson 8. Wealth has a purpose, blessing others. The ultimate reason God blesses his people with wealth is to make them a blessing. Genesis chapter 12 verse 2 records God's promise to Abraham, "I will bless you, and you will be a blessing." True wealth is not measured by what we keep, but by the lives we impact. Ephesians chapter 4 verse 28 instructs, "Work that you may have something to share with those in need." Wealth is a tool for kingdom expansion and community transformation. Lesson 9. Seek first the kingdom. Jesus gave the ultimate priority for prosperity in Matthew chapter 6 verse 33. "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." Wealth without God's kingdom leads to emptiness. But when God's priorities come first, his will, his mission, his glory, he ensures our material needs are abundantly met. Lesson 10. Prosperity requires righteousness. Wealth built outside of righteousness eventually collapses. Proverbs chapter 10 verse 22 says, "The blessing of the Lord brings wealth, without painful toil for it." God's way to riches is not through corruption, greed, or exploitation but through righteousness. Psalm chapter 1 verse 3 describes the righteous man. "Whatever he does prospers." True prosperity is sustainable only when rooted in integrity and obedience to God. Climax. The turning point of this book is the realization that applying these principles transforms not just bank accounts but lives. Pilzer shares testimonies of Christians who moved from lack to abundance when they stopped seeing money as worldly and started treating it as a tool for God's work. Think about the early church in Acts chapter 4 verse 34. "There were no needy persons among them." Why? Because believers pooled resources, practiced generosity, and managed wealth God's way. Imagine what would happen today if Christians embraced the same mindset. We would fund schools, hospitals, missions, and transform entire nations. Wealth becomes powerful when it shifts from self-centered consumption to kingdom-centered distribution. Here's the big picture. God is not against wealth. He's against greed and misuse. Stewardship, hard work, and generosity are biblical keys to financial blessing. Wealth is a tool to glorify God, bless others, and expand His kingdom. Deuteronomy chapter 8 verse 18 sums it up perfectly. But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. So the next time someone tells you God wants you poor, remind them, God wants His children to thrive, not just survive. Now I'd love to hear from you. Do you believe God wants His people to prosper financially? Or do you still think poverty is somehow more spiritual? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Christian wealth principles, check out my next video where we explore more timeless biblical wisdom for living a life of abundance and purpose. This is the Summary Shelf, where timeless books meet practical life application. Don't just watch. Apply these truths and see your life change.